All right, I think we'll get started. We're going to briefly go over some introductions and introduce everyone on the panel. My name is Brandon Cox. I'm the PR director at 505 Games. We are an indie publisher based in, our headquarters is actually in Italy, but we are headquartered in Southern California for our U.S. office. We do everything. We do Payday, Terraria, Brothers, hosts from console to PC, all across the board. My story kind of sucks, so we won't spend too much time on mine. But we're going to go down the line and let everyone's. My story is, I'm the moderator. No one needs to know about me. I'm just here to help manage time. So I'm going to go through and we're going to introduce everyone else.
Oh, it's me. Yeah, I'm Sarah. I'm a community manager at Sony XDev. So we publish first-party and third-party titles. So I work on Little Big Planet, Quantic Dream Games, Resogun, Murasaki Baby, and a lot of other smaller indie games. And my story is not tragic, but I will share it later.
Perfect. Next up, we have Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Grigsby. I'm lead animator at Respawn Entertainment. We just finished our first game after our company was founded, which is Titanfall. Thank you. All right. Yeah.
Next, we have Ramon.
I'm Ramon Russell. I'm a community manager and game designer at Sony San Diego. We make MLB The Show. We also just announced 2 new games yesterday with Kill Strain and Drawn to Death.
Next, we have Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Stokes. I'm the University Relations Manager for Sony Computer Entertainment America, PlayStation.
Last but not least, Justin.
Hello, my name is Jay McBride. I am a senior online programmer at Sony San Diego Studios, and I work on some of the games that Ramon just mentioned, pretty much everything we do at San Diego except for MLB.
Awesome. And so what we like to do is just kind of briefly let each of the panelists go. We'll start with Mark and give just a little background, a little bit of their backgrounds, where they came from, how they got here, and then the goal is to give you guys action items if you have any questions, and leave this really as a discussion. So after the intros, we really just kind of want to leave it up to questions. So if you have any questions about getting into the industry, about the industry, or any of the peripherals around the industry, this is that opportunity to ask any questions to a lot of the people who can help, because everyone varies in different capacities and different disciplines. So it's a good size test subject for any industry you might be into. I think between the 5 panelists, they could figure out, give you some good answers. So we'll start with Mark. Just kind of give a brief background of your history.
At a young age, I was interested in drawing and animation. I always aspired to be a Disney animator. I wanted to be in films. So as I grew, I continued working on my craft, and then finally started college at the Art Institute of Dallas in Texas. I handled that for about 2 years. It didn't go actually as smooth as I thought it would be. I had a lot of financial problems, so work and school got in the way. So at a certain point, I had to leave college and just try to make it with the job. So I started working at different jobs around the city, theaters, hotels, and then finally ended up in Sam's Club in the freezer. And I thought that was it. And I was like, I can't believe I'm in Sam's Club in the freezer stocking chicken McNuggets, you know? So a couple of friends of mine that went to school with me, they knew my talents, and they picked up jobs in the industry. And one job opened up, and they knew that I could probably fill it. It was a 2D, back then it was texture artist, and this was like 1998.
He's a lot older than he looks.
Yeah. This was 1998, so this was back in the N64 days. So this company, Paradigm Entertainment, picked me up. I started as a texture artist, moved my way up through the ranks as a modeler, then an art director on a couple of projects. My first game ever was Beetle Adventure Racing. I don't know if any people out there remember that game, but that was on the N64. Then a couple of games, Terminator, Dawn of Fate, Terminator Redemption, and then yeah, it was rough. It was rough. So I was at that company for 7 years, and I learned a lot. I felt it was more like a boot camp for me in my career. I met a lot of talented guys, many of them which I soon started my next stint in my career, which was Infinity Ward. We all formed back together like Voltron, and started working on Call of Duty 2. And then from there, I worked on Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which both I was lead animator. Then there was a hiccup in relations at Infinity Ward, and we left and created Respawn. So that's pretty much how I got here, from the bottom, and now I'm here. So.
I can't remember. So when I was younger, I wanted to be a ballerina. That didn't work out. So I remember I played games on the BBC computer, like Granny's Garden and Chucky Egg when I was little. Broke my dad's computer. So I always grew up around games from a really early age. And then I remember playing Metal Gear Solid 1 and saving my pocket money for forever to get this collector's edition that had the soundtrack with it, which was just that operatic song over and over and over again. And I remember playing it and thinking, oh, this is a great story. I could tell this story. I could write this. So then, scrapped my ballerina plans, decided to be a writer. So went to do English, history, all the kind of reading-based courses. Went to university and did history and English, which is basically the worst degree I thought I could do, because all I knew how to do was read a lot, write a lot of essays, and stay out till 5 a.m. Didn't do as well as I wanted. Got in England a 2-2, so we call it a drinker's degree. So I had a lot of fun, didn't really study. And then when I came out, I applied for a lot of jobs. So I applied at a load of really big game publishers, and I got stuck in that terrible loop of, do you have any game experience? No, then we won't give you a job. Okay, if you give me a job, I'll get the experience. Yeah, but no, you don't have the experience. And I got stuck in that loop for a good year. In that time, I worked in a call center where I handled customer complaints for broadband for a company that was featured on British television for robbing everyone of all their money. And that was a good year. So I learned a lot of great customer service skills that year. So I remember thinking, okay, so I'm not very good at this. What am I good at? And I was still writing in my spare time. So I got a job at a big advertising agency who did Google campaigns. So then wrote for those guys, and then somehow segued into managing Google's, then Google Talk. It was really early prototype. And then I kind of got stuck in this depressing, no offense to anyone advertising, I got stuck in the advertising world for a while, which is a bit soul-destroying. But it turned out that Sega were looking for somebody to help launch their first ever MMO for Football Manager. It didn't really last. And they wanted someone to do their paid-for advertising. And I worked at Google, so I went for the job, and it was the first time any kind of games company in Europe at least had really specifically looked for somebody with paid-for search experience, affiliate marketing. And I got that job, and Football Manager Live was a great concept. But unfortunately, if you have a game like that, a game world with only one Ronaldo, when the game world opens, everybody buys Ronaldo. And then no one else wants to play anymore. So unfortunately, I got made redundant from there. And then I worked on Def Jam Rap Star, which I got made redundant from. So I kind of realized that I had this great experience where I knew online marketing, I knew writing, I knew customer services, and a friend of mine said, well, community management would be actually great because it's dealing with people, which you suffered the call center. If you can manage that, I'm pretty sure you can manage people on forums. It involves like writing for blogs, writing social media, doing that marketing side. And a job came up for Rocksteady Studios on Arkham Asylum. And I applied for it. And in the interview, the last thing I said to them was, please give me this job. Please, oh God. Like, I don't really read Batman comics, but I can learn. I can read everything. I'll do it now. I know everything. And for some reason, they took a chance on me. And I was there for about 3 years, up until the end of Arkham City, when the job came up at Sony, which was looking for somebody who knew how to build websites and had that kind of online experience. So for me, it's been a long way from my ballerina dreams. But I think it's quite unique, for, at least for me, with community management, where I've come from a marketing point of view. And because community management is such a strange job title in that people think it's just Twitter, Facebook, forums, but actually you're usually doing PR, you're usually building websites, you're usually doing a lot of online marketing and PR work. So I kind of found myself here now without having ever spoken to a game fan up until my first ever Eurogamer about 10 years ago. I'm not as old as you. That's me.
So I always knew that I wanted to be an engineer before I really knew what that meant. Didn't know what type. For the longest time, I thought I was going to do robotics. Got to college and realized that I really enjoyed programming, so jumped into that immediately. I went to an undergraduate program that pretty much brainwashed you to get a PhD. So I went to graduate school thinking that I was still going to do at least artificial intelligence, if not robotics. And then kind of got out of the electrical engineering, but really still loved the programming aspect of it. And then that's when I kind of discovered that I could apply the artificial intelligence trade to things like, at that time, Unreal Tournament and other. That was pretty much the big thing that you could script easily back then without having to license an engine. And so I somehow conned my advisor at Michigan State into letting me do my master's project in Unreal script and doing emergent behaviors in video games. And that kind of was the first time that I got hands-on experience working in games and not just playing them. And from that moment on, I knew that that was what I really wanted to do. Like everybody else here, it's really hard to get that job, that first job. The first thing they want to know is, tell us about your game experience. What games have you shipped? So for me, the next step was looking for something to transition to, and that was Microsoft, ironically. And so I took a job at Microsoft, and they said, well, what do you want to do? Because you're a good candidate. We want to hire you. And I said, I want to make games. And they said, well, you don't have any game experience. I said, yes, but I want to make games. And they said, well, how about you work on Windows? And and I said, well, I want to make games. And they said, well, how about you work on Windows? So my other option was to move to Rochester, Minnesota to work for IBM. So I ended up working on Windows for 2 years. The entire time, in my hiring interview, I'm talking to HR, and basically I said, I'm going to go work on Windows, but I know I have to stay at least a year, but I'm transferring to games. And they kind of all chuckled. So I did Windows for 2 years before I switched over to Xbox, Microsoft Game Studios. And I started out on the publishing side. They do a lot of testing, and I did a lot of automation. The first game I worked on was Vanguard Saga of Heroes, back when Microsoft owned it, before they canceled it and Sony picked it up. And that's what we did. We actually automated that entire game, what was there of it. And from there, let's see. I did a slew of. One nice thing about working in publishing is that you get to touch a lot of things. You don't necessarily own a feature. I can't say I did this, but I can say that I played a good role in Gears 1, Gears 2, Mass Effect, Forza 4. I'm forgetting some stuff. But the last big thing I did for them, finally, I was done at Microsoft and with the clouds and all that. And one of the smartest people I've ever met. To put it in perspective, this guy couldn't sleep one night, so he rewrote the memory manager in Unreal because it was leaking memory, and just checked it in. He came to me and he said, "Hey, we're doing this project, and I can't tell you what it is, and I can't tell you what you're going to be doing, but you should join my team because it's pretty awesome, and you should do it." And I said, "Okay, sure," because I was ready to go anyway, and that turned out to be Connect Adventures. Which at the time wasn't anything. They didn't have the. I don't know if anybody saw the Jimmy Fallon demo where they were driving the Need for Speed car, and crashing that all around. They didn't even have that because I wrote it. So ended up doing Connect Adventures, which was an amazing experience. Just kind of changing the way people played games. From there, I was really done with Seattle, and was looking for opportunities in sunny San Diego. And at that time, unfortunately, Sony was not hiring, so I contracted for EA on Bulletstorm. And then Sony was hiring. And so kind of moved over to Sony doing online programming because everybody somehow thought that doing network gameplay equaled online programming. So I let them believe that and took the job. And have been working on various titles internally, externally. I play a role in pretty much helping with the external titles out of San Diego that we don't directly have developers for, like Drawn to Death, like Kill Strain, and also helping out with some of the online stuff with our internal titles.
I've been playing games since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I never, ever thought I'd ever get to work in the industry, but I had an epiphany in my 20s. I had a pretty decent law enforcement career going on, and I was in college trying to get my criminal justice degree. And through some things that happened, I fell out of love with the profession. And at that time, I said, I'm never going to do anything ever again that I do not love. So I sat there and thought, what do I love? I love video games. Have no clue how it's made. I know nobody who makes games. I did not know what to do.
Where were you living?
I was living in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh.
So this game came out called Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and it changed everything. I'm sure all of y'all have played it. And I remember I saw this video of this guy who was the lead animator in that game. And, and that dude is sitting at the end of this table. And I saw this video of Mark, and this dude kind of looked like me. And I said to myself, wait a minute, if he can do this, maybe I can do this too. So the next week I dropped out of college, quit my law enforcement job, and moved to Atlanta. Atlanta had 2 Game Do studios. I had no job. I stayed with a friend. That didn't work out. I ended up homeless for a couple of weeks. And I was lost. I had no idea what to do. I just had a dream, and that's it. But throughout my law enforcement career and before that, I had always played a lot of games, and I was very active on different forums, especially Madden. And I had developed a pretty decent relationship with Electronic Arts and their Tiburon team in Orlando. So my good friend, Will Kinsler, who was a community manager at EA, he's now at Epic now, called me one night during Christmas Eve. And I was filling out my application to go to DeVry for their game design program. And he said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, what else am I going to do? I don't have any experience to make a resume. And he was like, make a resume with all the stuff that you've done for us. And you'll get a call in 3 months, or you'll get a call in 3 years from somebody, and they will give you a chance. And I kid you not, 3 months to the date, I got 2 or 3 phone calls. I ended up taking a job in Reno. Was there for a month and got fired. And so I was at another crossroads. Do I go back home to Mobile, Alabama, or do I go to LA where there's tons of game studios and just hope for the best? Moved to LA, live with a friend. 6 months later, I'm on my last bit of money. I paid my car note, and I got $5 in my pocket. And I get a call from Sony PlayStation. And somehow or another, they found my resume. I interviewed with them, and I've been there ever since. And if my unintelligent, no degree having behind can get into gaming, anybody can. And that's my story.
And that's a great story. Everyone's story is really very interesting. My path, basically, I started off, I was an Army brat. So my family traveled around the world. I primarily got to see Colorado. So I went to undergrad in Colorado and enjoyed my time there. I've always had an interest in entertainment. And so whether it was film or television, I eventually got into games when I got my first PS1 and loved Crash Bandicoot. Couldn't stop playing it. Played Crash, Bandicoot, the kart racing game. It was so fun. Anyway, I was like, what am I going to do? I've been doing college admissions for quite a while. I did it for 6 years. I said, you know what? There's this whole .com thing going on in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let me go ahead and check that out. So moved out to San Francisco, and it was going bust by that time I got out there. So I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And I just lived down the street from Electronic Arts, and they had a university relations manager role open. And so I ended up running the EA Academy, which is the internship program that EA had at the time. It was probably about 11 or so students. I grew it to about 80. It was named one of the best top 10 internship programs in the country. And it was a great time sort of being in, with PlayStation 2. EA was doing incredibly well, but I wanted to go to grad school. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to sort of be successful in applying to that while also working at EA. So I took some time off and went to Stanford and worked a job at the Graduate School of Business for 2 research centers. Applied to a couple of different universities and actually got into USC and was doing the Cinematic Arts program, the IMD program. Ended up transferring to the Annenberg program and getting my communications management degree. And still stuck on trying to do entertainment. But at the time, the writer's strike was going on in LA. So I'm just like, okay, what is with my timing? So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go back into recruiting just yet. I'm going to try and live this dream. But I got a call from Apple. And they were like, can you come back up to the Bay Area because we need a college recruiter to help us hire MBAs for Tim Cook, who's now the CEO's group. So I moved back up to the Bay Area and did that for a year. It was an amazing company, amazing experience, but I still had this dream of getting into entertainment again in another capacity. So I did that, got a call from Vanderbilt University. So my background's really sort of a combination of being in higher education and being in entertainment to some degree. So I went to Vanderbilt and did a consulting project for a friend who I had worked with during my undergrad time. And then I got a call from Lucasfilm. So Lucasfilm said, hey, can you come out and start the Jedi Academy for us? And George Lucas at the time was wanting to really sort of bring up the junior level talent within the industry and sort of build that out. So I ran the Jedi Academy for 5 years until Disney came along, bought Lucasfilm, and suddenly my role was redundant. So luckily, really while I was still there, I got a call from PlayStation. And they're in the process of revamping their program. I've been there for the past year and a half, building out our junior, basically our internship program and our junior level hiring, and have had a great time getting back into games, and it's been a great experience.
I'll give you the very brief 30-second story of mine. I'm similar to Ramon in terms of I played games all my life growing up. No one could see me in GoldenEye. I was pretty much undefeated in Mario. I played everything from TNC Surf to Skate or Die up until Vampire Hunter D. But then life happened, similar to Mark was saying. Got into working in radio, got to working in entertainment. The writer's strike happened. I worked in radio, the Telecommunications Act happened, where so many radio stations started being bought out by conglomerates and losing local talent. And I found myself in Las Vegas, and I was working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and wearing a suit and tie in 110-degree weather. And I was working at the side as an associate producer on one of the local TV stations with Brian McKnight and Sheena Easton booking casino acts to come on their show. Long story short, Celine Dion was starting at Caesar's Palace, and the PR folks that I worked with were like, "Hey, you ever thought about working in PR?" I was like, I don't even really know what it is. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I am." And in some way, we went to lunch 4 times, and then they gave me a job offer. I didn't know what PR was, but I went and changed my major to communications, and it had no math, so I was really happy about that. I then went on to work for Wynn Las Vegas. I was Steve Wynn's publicist for 3 years. I opened Wynn Macau. And during the SEMA show, I'm a sneakerhead, so I have a good friends who work for Nike, and they would always come for USA basketball, and a lot of the players would stay at the Wynn Hotel. And then so I get a phone call, and my friend's like, "Hey, I got this friend from PlayStation. They do this big show for Gran Turismo every year during the SEMA show, and they want to hold some at the hotel. Can I send them your way?" It's like, absolutely. And this was 2006. This is the beginning of 2007, just after PS3 launched. 'Cause I think PS3 launched 2006, correct? November 17th, 2006. I didn't have $500 at the time, so I couldn't afford it. And so I was like, "Oh, absolutely." So I get a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do the SEMA Awards for Gran Turismo." Long story short, we did the awards, went off without a hitch, and they said, "Hey, you ever thought about working in games?" It's like, no, but I love games, so I'd love to hear what kind of opportunity. And it just so happened someone was leaving. I took a flight the week before Thanksgiving, and I started December 2nd. Ended my contract with Wynn, and I was on a plane, and never looked back. I was at PlayStation for 1.5 years. Then I went to Konami. I was at Konami for 5 years, worked on everything from Metal Gear Solid to Castlevania to Dance Dance Revolution. I started with 505 back in June, and it's very different. I think the big thing I've noticed is I was very spoiled before in terms of how to do PR, because in traditional PR, when you open a hotel, you don't see it till it's open. You open a restaurant, you don't get to eat the food until it's done. With games, people are seeing the games 24 months before it's done. You're seeing a project 12, 24, 16 months before it's done. So it's a very different thing, and I failed a lot. And there was times where I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because it's so counterintuitive to such traditional PR. Thank God I stayed in it, because it is the most dynamic industry in the world. No one outside of maybe cell phones is moving faster than games. So that's my story. Thank you. What I like to do is basically open it up for questions. I mean, on this panel, you have everybody from the people who actually can tell you how to get into games and what they're looking for, to people who can give you insight in terms of what they're looking for as people in candidates as they come into the workplace. So use this opportunity. I ask that you introduce yourself, and then also, what are you aspiring for? What do you want to do? Where do you want to work? What's your ideal situation? And hopefully we can give you a little bit of insight in terms of what to do. And we'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Ravion. I am currently a master's student in the CS program at USC. Demo day is next week, and then a second Sony showcasing the following week. So my head hurts, I'm tired. But Crash Team Racing tops out Mario Kart any day of the week. And I guess my goal, my real passion is education. I've taught in the classroom, taught game design in the classroom, tutored math left and right, from kindergarten all the way through like 12th grade. And I think it's something that a lot of kids just don't understand how what you do in the classroom is not necessarily about the grade. It's about understanding how you can apply it later on. Like all these things actually do build up into something, which is why I emphasize education as such, games, educational games. So that's, if I had a dream space, that's where it is. It's developing hardcore educational games that aren't about necessarily the education. Like I went to the Serious Play conference this summer, and finally somebody, actually articulated this thought that I had of the game should be designed around the learning concept. You make the fun, you make the learning an integral piece of the fun where you cannot separate the two. So no chocolate-covered broccoli in the form of, Math Blaster and other such things. Leveling systems, lots of conversations with this guy here about, leveling systems, other such things, about how you get a player involved from a design perspective. So that's my ideal. Currently, actually, next project set up is a robotics related, because I was originally in the robotics program. It's a robotics related game. Hopefully that has a sort of meta learning of, mechanics, robotics, programming type thing. But I really just want to reboot Robo Wars in a digital manner. That is pretty much the fun part about doing this, is that I get to literally just reboot Robo Wars. My question for all of you is about producer consumership. It has been said time and time again when it comes to technology that the low-income communities are consumers. That is what they do as a matter of trend, is to buy products left and right. It's about status of what you have, but very, very few of them in the realm of technology are becoming producers. Now, when it comes to women, there's lots of programs popping up left and right. I'm wearing a Girls Make Games shirt. There's lots of, those things going on. But how do you, as an individual, try and tell this young person or whoever else, and it could be just a friend of yours, that the producing has so much more, has a larger effect, has a value greater than being just the consumer. Individually, do you find yourselves with that experience of trying to get that across, become a producer, not just a consumer?
Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm formulating an answer.
We'll start with Anita.
In Europe, we've got a scheme with low-income schools, so they're kind of in North England, unfortunately, around Liverpool, where we've been using Little Big Planet as a tool to introduce very young kids, actually, and teachers to how accessible making things can be, how it's not all guns, no offense. And it's been quite interesting for us, because the biggest hurdle we had actually wasn't introducing the children to the concept of all these ways they could be involved in games. It didn't have to be programmers or coders. You could be an artist. You could be production. The production team for Little Big Planet runs the scheme. But actually, the challenge we had was teachers. One, teaching them how to use a controller, which was the single most infuriating experience of my life. But I think we found that actually more of the time was spent educating the teachers, because their preconceived notions of games were archaic. They were talking to us, I remember the Spectrum, that was nerdy, and we're going, we've moved on a bit now. We've kind of come forward, and from that, we're rolling out the scheme across America, I think later next year. But it's certainly, Little Big Planet is quite a good tool, because the Create tools are very simple and easy to use. But I think for us, we found that the biggest learning for us is that actually, if we can get into schools where the kids are being inspired and taught, let's inspire the teachers first and hope that their passion comes across to the kids.
No, and I totally agree with that. I think it starts at an early age, students what their options are. I mean, I just remember when I was growing up, it's always doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? And you're like, okay, what if I don't fit into one of those roles? What do I want to do? I'm like, well, what do you do in entertainment? And I think it's exposing them. If kids see you going in there and you're in school and you're passionate about what you're doing, I think they glean onto that and sort of say, hey, how can I be a part of that? I think doing things more educationally and getting into the schools, affecting teachers and parents. I think when I first started off just trying to recruit students, people are like, oh, you're getting your computer science degree. Why in the world are you going to get into games? You should be a rocket scientist. You should be doing these other things. And it's just like, once parents found, hey, this is actually a viable career, that wasn't such a hard sell anymore. So I think it's educating them about what the options are. Even downstairs, I've been working at the recruiting booth, and there's so many people who are like, oh, I never thought about a career in games before. And so, I mean, we still have a lot of work to do.
First of all, congratulations on what you're doing. I think it's pretty damn awesome. As a kid, to go with what Anita's saying, my mother, I think it's a lot of the parents need to start pushing these kids in right directions and in having them aspire to do more things. I think it starts with the parents, and then, like she says, also the teachers, and then you teach the students. My mother, just personal experience, my mother was very religious. Her view of the future was, God, 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 and more God, and there's more God after that. So it was never like a real, hey, if you apply your art and your talent, you could probably do this or do that or whatever. The main focus was the religion. But I don't know, I honestly just think it starts with the parents. The parents need to start educating their kids and saying, hey, you can do that, you can do this, you can apply yourself here and apply whatever, and not just aspire to what your generation has been knowing in the past or whatever. I don't know. Starts with the parents.
Next question.
Hi, my name's Richard Lester. I am a master's student at Northern Arizona University. So I'm at the point right now where I'm kind of deciding on my thesis topic, and I figure since I don't particularly come from a prestigious university, my thesis is going to be my primary advertisement for myself. And so I'm kind of curious, what do you guys look for? Like if you're looking for someone who is coming in with a master's and you have a thesis, what do you look for in that? How do you make hiring decisions based on,
So it kind of depends on what you're interested in doing. Are you planning to be, what sort of roles are you interested in?
I'm a computer scientist and I want to do technical animation, so yeah.
Okay, so for technical animation, I might sort of rely on some of the engineer and the artist at the table to talk a little bit more in detail about what their particular teams are using their TA or TDs for. In general, I would say, yes, with your thesis, are you doing a portfolio like with a game and doing ray tracers and doing images and things like that, or what's your focus?
My
Sorry, I'm asking you more questions than
my current topic is using probability models to make determinations on how different body parts should react in an animation if they're forced. So let's say your shoulder is forced back in some way. Speaking from probability, what are your other limbs likely to be doing at that point to try to make things more realistic?
So it sounds like you're probably going to have a paper and a demo, right? So
yes.
Make sure that you have a good demo reel sort of explaining exactly what your thesis is and other things that you might, are applicable to whatever company that you're applying to. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the key things. I know I have a short little presentation at the conclusion of this that I'm going to share with the audience, and that has a little more pointers about what you should be including in your demo reel. But just highlight your skills and make sure it's applicable directly to the jobs that you're applying for. So if it says that that they need ray tracers or they're looking for specific programming knowledge and proficient in C and things like that, make sure you also have that. But once again, your demo reel is a way to highlight the skills that you're going to be bringing to the table.
Definitely, it's your demo reel is the main thing.
Okay.
And you need to focus on, like you said, technical animation.
Yeah, or the engineering behind how the animations play out and the procedural animation.
Right.
things
So
of that
more
nature.
of a programmer.
Yes, programming
yeah.
focused. But.
All right. Well, that would be questions for more of the programmers. As far as if you were going for like rigging or hey, I'm going to do a cloth sim on this character, then it's just you need to focus on that in your reel, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
From a programming standpoint for development, mostly what I'm looking for is, unless I'm very specifically trying to fill a niche, I want to know if you can code. Your master's topic and your demo reel is cool and it might be impressive, but I'm more interested in your ability to solve problems, learn new languages, code. Because if we're using Unity this week, and I need you to learn Unity script, and then next year we decide to move away from that, and we're doing, for whatever reason, we're doing JavaScript or just straight C#, or we go back to native C, then we don't rehire engineers, right? From an engineering standpoint, you hire smart developers. Because the one thing I learned in college and grad school was how to code. And so now it doesn't really matter how to learn programming languages and how to solve problems. So it doesn't matter if I come to you and say we have this new problem that we never did before. I mean, I learned Golang last month because we needed a matchmaking service. And so that's the biggest thing from an engineering standpoint. Even more important, unless you're applying for a specific animation role, then obviously highlight your animation abilities. But if you're looking for a general programming job, highlight your problem solving and ability to learn.
So are you suggesting that I have a breadth of demos along with the thesis, or a particular thesis that demonstrates a lot of coding ability?
I would say the demo is really more important if you're applying for a very specific job in that field. Like if he was looking for somebody to code the animation engine, then your demo is spot on. If I'm looking for a junior or senior programmer, like I'm gonna check out your demo and I'll go, oh, that's a cool demo. Well, really, I'm looking at your skill set. I'm looking not just at what languages do you know right now, but hey, you know C, C++, C#, Java, and something else. So I get that you can learn new languages and you can solve problems.
Okay.
Because when I go to hire developers, I'm perfectly willing to teach them the language that they need to know, provided that they have the capability to pick it up relatively quickly and run with it.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, part of my question just was already answered, but I still have a question. I'm Christian Benavides. I'm a current student at Full Sail University. I know that Anita went there like 2 months ago. I was there, where you guys were talking about internship programs. At first, I thought that PlayStation never came to my mind as an opportunity to job because it was like, AAA PlayStation, so far away. But then the internship program for racing graduates seems like a very good opportunity, and I'm really considering it. I'm graduating in 6 months right now. So I heard May is the day to apply for internships. I'm a programmer. I'm a game developer. I'm very interested in the internship program. I already more in the graphics and AI part. So my question is, from here to that moment, what should I start doing? I know that the demo reel for the graphics and AI, especially like code samples, but what should I just make a demo reel or maybe little games or something more oriented to graphics and AI? I already created my website, so I have all my stuff there. But what can increase my possibilities to get approved or for the internship program itself?
I think we're going to jump into the internship program in a few minutes. We want to make sure everyone's questions get out, and then we're going to talk specifically about the internship program. And then we'll definitely, if you can come back, we'll definitely address that question directly.
Okay.
That works?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Will. I graduated from Michigan State getting a degree in computer science. Go White. After that, I worked at a indie studio for a couple of years. We did a lot of contract work with some of the bigger I don't know, web and mobile kinds of companies at the time, your Nickelodeon, Disney, Zynga kind of stuff, and I kind of, decided I wanted to go in a different direction and ended up applying and getting a job at Riot, where I currently am. And it's a dream job. I'm really enjoying what I'm making, but I'm still, I guess, more as a player, not quite seeing the things coming out of the industry that I would like. More specifically, if you even just walk around the show floor or Google a lot of the things that are coming out, it's a lot of stories about straight, good-looking white people, going about doing their things, and I don't know, I feel like I've played through a lot of them before I've even booted it up, I guess, from the things I'm discovering and experiencing standpoint. So my question to you guys is, do you think, first of all, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think that it's something that needs to change, and if so, how does that happen?
Very, very good question. I think you're starting to slowly see a movement, and people have definitely noticed the same thing that you've noticed. And some studios are doing a really good job of showing more diversity. If you look at the game Evolve and their hunters, it goes across the board. There's women, there's, exactly like you said, non-white males who are heroes. If you look at studios like BioWare and their Mass Effect series and the Dragon Age series, you can create whoever you want, and the person that you create doesn't have to be straight. And it's something that they've done a really, really good job of pushing in diversity. What has to continue to happen, and what really helps is for people, for more people to get into games, to get new ideas that aren't the same thing that you're seeing every day, which is the problem that you're having. You walk around the show floor and you're seeing the same thing. We have to have more ingredients in the pot that makes the video game. And we get that by trying to grab people from very diverse backgrounds. And I think that's basically the way that it has to happen. And when you see someone who you can relate to doing things that you want to do, it inspires you to do those things. Like the reason why I quit my law enforcement job was because I saw that dude making video games. And I think that needs to keep happening. We need to keep seeing people from diverse backgrounds doing the things that we want to do, and the industry will continue to grow in a very diverse manner. It's the same way it works with kids. Kids want to play football because they see football players. They want to be an astronaut because they see shuttles taking off. Kids want to make video games because they love video games, and if they happen to see somebody who they can relate to, it may inspire them to try to do it.
Yeah, I think for me, like Siobhan Reddy, who's the head of Media Molecule, was somebody certainly that I really looked up to when I came in. And I think games like Tearaway are a really great example of how it's not specifically even about gender or sexuality, it's about an experience, about the player feeling something that they wouldn't feel if they weren't playing a video game. Certainly, the show floor does have a few blokes with guns, but I think what we've seen at PlayStation Experience, for me at least, has been a really great variety of games that aren't even about people anymore. They're just more about something that's happening to you, like Hohokum is a really great example of that. Also, it's beautiful. No Man's Sky, it's just about exploration. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now is going away from this kind of, here is your male lead, here is your female lead, here is your gay lead, here is your straight lead, and going more into what can I do in video games that I couldn't do in movies? What can I experience that I couldn't do in any other medium? And No Man's Sky has certainly been, for me, the game of the show that has said, it doesn't matter who I am as a player, I'm just exploring this mad world and seeing what that brings.
Awesome question, by the way.
Yeah, great.
Next question.
Hello, my name is Hassan. I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I got my degree in multimedia and interactive media design, and I have been doing that for the last 15 years. I have been an interactive art director, I have been a user experience designer. Recently, I've been a creative director for like an advertising agency. For the last 15 years, one of my favorite jobs was like I worked for Xbox. I designed, conceptualized social network. I worked on promotion of games like Halo 4. I designed Xbox blog. I ran their social network like Facebook. I was part of that team for a while, and I loved it. And I grew up playing games. So I guess my question is, I designed user experience for many of those things. So it's more on the advertising side and promotion side and the community side, which I love. And even like I always thought the PlayStation was doing much better job with like a blog, and even going out on the floor, I think they understand gamers so much better. So I'm trying to decide if I should transition back into gaming industry. And I'm in a really weird spot where I can't decide, is there a space for user experience design in gaming? And like ideally, I think I would like to work on games. I love what Blizzard is doing with community. I love what Riot is doing with community. I love what PlayStation is doing with community, and just walking around the floor and seeing the big posters and like indie games, and it's beautiful art. It's part of the advertising, but I also like gaming, and I'm not sure if there's like a space for user experience design in gaming. So I guess my question is for the entire panel. If you could guys advise me, it's such a weird space between like advertising, community, and game design, and I'm not sure if it's a right place for me. Where do you think like my skill set fits in gaming industry?
Wherever you want it to fit.
So for example, I designed Xbox One launch website, and I loved working on the user experience design for it. I loved community engagement, but also kind of like when I play games, I love seeing menus, I love logos, and I like how it's integrated into a game. So ideally, I would like to be like in the middle ground, kind of like more into game design. So like maybe like we're also like there's a borderline with community. So
You've got at my studio, I don't know if all studios are like this. Everybody on our team wears many hats.
I guess that's the problem, because I do wear so many different hats.
Right. So you shouldn't really. I don't think you're gonna have an issue with getting in. You've just gotta, wherever you interview for whatever position it is, you've got to make sure that they understand that this is what I want to do and I'm really, really good at it. Like one of the members from my team is sitting in the back, and he's a designer, but he spent a lot of time this year doing something completely different. And most roles now aren't being so strict, unless you're like a programmer or an artist. I mean, that's what you're going to do. But as far as community and game design, those things are starting to get a little bit muddy, and you can do both. You can really do whatever you want. You just got to convince somebody to give you a job and show that you're awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a great time as well to be looking into that kind of UI community experience. I think, like for Little Big Planet, we have 2 dedicated UI designers for the community section. So they're focused on helping people find the user-created levels. They're helping people find, we've got 7 social feeds. So I think looking into studios and games that have heavy community aspects, whether it's doesn't have to be Sony, like Riot, for example, and Blizzard have such strong community aspects built into game. If you're looking to get into UI, finding a way to make finding people to play with online easier, finding user-created content easier, I think would be a really great path to explore. Maybe look at some games and see what they're doing and whether that's something you think you could emulate and finding a way to fit in there.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries.
We're going to jump. We have about 5 more minutes left. We're going to jump into the PlayStation University, and then we'll resume some questions. So give me one moment. Think we're ready to go? And Anita's going to briefly walk you through the PlayStation University Internship program, because I think it might be valuable information for some of the people in the audience.
Great, thanks a lot. So also, if we run out of time, which I know we're sort of short on right now, feel free to come and talk with my colleague and I down on the floor, and we're more than happy to share any opportunities that we have in internships as well as full-time roles at SCA. So the PlayStation University Internship Program is what our internship program is called. So it's PlayStation University, and it's paid. Why is it paid? Is because we put you to work, okay? So in order to sort of just at the minimal qualify for it, you actually have to be a junior in college. We take juniors through PhD, and you can intern with us. This is what a differentiator for us. You can intern with us up to a year after you've graduated. So kind of opens up some possibilities if you weren't able to do an internship during your college years. We do provide housing. See the little caveat? You have to be at least 50 miles away from the studio that you're interning at, and that's primarily during the summer. Internships run for about 12 weeks, and they're available across our studios. So we're headquartered in San Mateo, but we also have studios in Santa Monica, Aliso Viejo, which is PlayStation Now, with Gaikai, San Diego, and Bend, Oregon. Once again, I mentioned sort of who is eligible, and I sort of skipped ahead, so let's move on to the next thing. These are the types of internship roles. So that first column you see are really more on the game development side. The second column is more on the business side. So we have a host, basically soup to nuts, of what kind of internship opportunities are there. I know the last person who asked a question had a question about UI and UX. Huge for us, and we've actually hired quite a few of our interns from that particular program. Really, the whole point of us doing an internship program is to have a way of identifying and creating a pipeline for future talent. So we really, once again, if you see something up there that interests you, definitely come and talk to us about it. Once you are an intern with us, we really are trying to provide you with a real work experience. So it's not a typical entertainment internship where you're fetching coffee or filing papers and doing all of that. Granted, you're going to be doing some of the low-level work, but you are doing real work that gives you exposure to what this career is. So think of it as trying a career on for size for 12 weeks. I also like to think of it as a 12-week-long interview. So not only are we looking and interviewing you, you're interviewing us and seeing if this is the type of culture and game environment that you want to be a part of once you launch your career. We also supplement our internships with some speaker series. So we have executives who come and talk to the interns about what's going on in their particular studio. We have a mentor program, so you're assigned a mentor. Oftentimes our managers are in a lot of meetings and busy, so if you're checking things into the engine and something crashes, hey, you can go to your mentor and have them help you out. But they are also there just to offer advice about getting into the games industry, what conferences you should be going to. It seems like you already know which ones to do. So things like that. We do mid and final evaluations. This is a great time to sort of check in and see how you are performing. If we need to have those tough conversations and course correct things, that's the time that we'll have them. But if you're doing well, this is a time to sort of reinforce those good behaviors as well. We do final presentations. The final presentations are one last chance for you to let everybody know what you've done. So your team is there, the recruiting team is there, and actually Sean Layden, the CEO president of PlayStation, has been at every single one of the presentations. Last week, actually before he came in, flew out, he actually changed his flight to hear all the intern presentations recently. And it's once again, I know it's sort of terrifying for the interns, but a great way once again to sort of highlight what they've done for the past 12 weeks. And then we do sort of special perks and events as well, where trying to give you a sense of what it's like to live and work in the area that you're interning at. So going to museums, going to baseball games, things like that. So how to apply? You actually have to apply online. So go to that URL. What we require is a cover letter, particularly for, as interns, a lot of you have a very similar experience, so this is a chance for you to differentiate yourself from the rest of the competition. Show that you're passionate. Basically, when you're applying for jobs, this is not the time to be modest, so brag about yourselves. Any awards, any achievements that you've done, we want to know about it. With your resume, definitely highlight those things in your resume as well. For our particular system, it prefers PDFs. We will take Word documents and stuff like that, but it's just easier for PDFs, so if you could help us out, we'd appreciate that. In most of the positions, if a URL is required, it will be listed in the job description. Make sure it's a working URL. Can't emphasize that enough. Particularly for our internships coming up for this summer, we have quite a few. We're going to be posting about 100, hopefully by December 19th, if everything works out accordingly. But for the summer, those positions will open up mid-December. The deadline's February 15th. We'll review applications after that time. Interviews are primarily over the phone or video conferencing, Skype, things of that nature. And then we have decisions by mid-April. And then the internships will start May for semester students and June for quarter students. That's just another representation of that. And then guys, feel free to add on to these things for tips for applying once again. So research the company that you're applying for. The thing that you guys have that I didn't have when I was growing up is the internet, so you should know a lot more about these companies and what's offered, what the culture is to some extent. Target your application materials for the jobs that you're applying for. With recruiters, we're not going to hide the information for you. If you need to know C++ or you need to know Maya, we will list that in the job description. work backwards from the job description. So what this means too is sometimes you might have to create more than one resume. Okay, now some people are like, oh man, what's that mean? That's more work. But if you want the job, sometimes that's what it requires, is to, once again, cater your materials accordingly. Note the style of the company and match your materials. So as you're walking around the store or on the floor, you'll notice that there's a variety of different styles downstairs, right? So if you're looking at something like Little Big Planet, it's more cartoony in nature, right? So particularly if you're an artist, you might want to cater your portfolio to something that's going to be a little bit more cartoony, whereas if you're looking at Nathan Drake, right? If that's a little more photorealistic, right? So you want to cater things to that nature. So just once again, know what you're applying for and cater your materials accordingly. Differentiate yourself from other applicants, once again. Brag about yourselves. Okay, for art submissions specifically, we will require an online portfolio usually. Provide a working URL. One of the fastest ways for your materials to get overlooked is for you to say, hey, my site is under construction, or come back later. We will move on to the next person. So make sure it's, before you even submit anything to us, that it's up and ready to go. Include a shot breakdown, so let us know exactly what you worked on and what software you used to achieve those effects. That's really key. And provide your best work. I know a lot of students have the tendency to sort of show the breadth of what they've done. It's like, I started off here, but look how I've grown over time, and I'm now here. We just want to see your best stuff, okay? So put your best foot forward, and no need for fancy interface or sound unless you're doing something with lip sync. Basically, we're going to turn all of the sound down, and it's really about the content that you have to offer. For our technical submissions, list the programming languages that you're proficient in. And I think particularly for students, if you are studying something and you think you're proficient, maybe say you have a basic understanding, an intermediate, and then a proficient understanding of particular languages. It's often nice to sort of break that out. If you do have a URL of game demos that you've worked on, things that show your work, definitely highlight that. Links to any technical projects, whether it's a school project or personal projects. You'll be surprised. So we'll just do an initial sort of cursory glance, but a lot of the hiring teams will go in and do a deep depth dive into your website if you have that, and play whatever demos you have and things like that. So make sure, once again, it's working. We do like to see your demos, so if you are highlighting something that you've worked on personally or something that you've done in school, once again, tell us what your specific contribution was to that particular project, any technical awards or acknowledgements, and be prepared to show code samples. We won't ask for that initially, but if you get further along in the job process, then we will ask for that. Great, so just wrapping up, if you have any more questions, feel free to, once again, go downstairs or write me at the internship at playstation.sony.com email. Thank you.
I think, are we out of time? I believe we are. Yeah, so we're over, but I asked if the panel could just hang a few minutes outside, and if anyone has any follow-up questions, we'll all be outside hanging out for a few more minutes. But thank you guys so much for coming. Greatly appreciate it. Those great questions. Thank you for coming to PlayStation Experience, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the floor. Thank you guys.
PlayStation